as an attendee, I feel like it's going to be so amazing. So you're, not only going to go for the beer, you'll be able to shop local makers in the area, check out some awesome artwork, and just vibe the entire time, the entire day.
Welcome to HenHouse Unruffled, an audio companion to the beers of HenHouse Brewing Company. Each episode, we'll take a deeper dive into each beer's concept, recipe, can art, sensory, and more with your hen host, Fridge.
What up? What's up, Unruffled listeners? It's Fridge. And today on the HenHouse Unruffled podcast, my trusty co-hosts Bob and Sayre will be taking the lead and giving y'all a little preview of what to expect at the Freshtival. They'll be speaking with local entrepreneur and tastemaker Mercedes Hernandez. Mercedes is the voguish virtuoso behind Bow and Arrow Clothing, Holy Vintage, and the SoCo Market. As you'll hear, Mercedes is playing a prominent role in the upcoming event. She's curated a special edition of the SoCo Market that'll be taking place within the Freshtival grounds, and she's producing the Art Of Freshness Gallery, a visual art exhibit featuring the work of the artists behind some of the most eye-popping label designs in craft beer today. So stay tuned, and you'll hear all about Mercedes' extraordinary story and her collaborative philosophy, while Bob and Sayre struggle to conceal how tragically unhip they both are. Without further ado, let's get it going.
Mercedes Hernandez, the woman, the force behind SoCo Market, which we are super stoked to be announcing, is going to play a role in Freshtival 2022.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mercedes, welcome to the Unruffled podcast.
Yeah.
Say hello to the people.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for
Our
this
pleasure.
partnership, and
Right?
it's been awesome working with HenHouse, especially with our, our markets and all of that.
Yeah.
So excited for it.
As someone who got that first email from you a while ago, here's a question. How did that first email get started?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, kind of going back to when I started the SoCo Market, I've always been super inspired by LA and everything that goes down over there. So I went to the Melrose Trading Post over in LA, and I was super inspired. There was just a bunch of young people with small businesses selling there, and it was just a cool community, a cool vibe. And I was like, I would love to bring something like that to Sonoma County.
Right.
And, during this time when the pandemic happened, you saw so many new businesses emerge from this. A lot of people had times on their hand to finally venture out and do, work on things that they've been dreaming of doing. And so we saw so many small businesses come, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to connect with the community in person and make that connection and give them an opportunity to sell their stuff in person, because a lot of these businesses were just selling through Instagram.
Sure.
And that's how I started as well for Bow and Arrow.
Yeah.
And so the first market I hosted in September of 2020. And I had reached out to a handful of small businesses that I knew in the area. And I was just like, hey guys, I have this idea. I want to, start a small business market. Are you interested in participating? And a couple of them, said no. A lot of them were unsure. It did seem a little intimidating for a small business. And so we were able to gather 11 small businesses from Sonoma County. And I, got in touch with the city of Cotati, and they were able to close down the side street next to Bow and Arrow Clothing. And so we started with 11 vendors. In the first market, I didn't know what to expect. I did all the marketing that I knew I could do, and it was such a great turnout. And I was so surprised, the support we received from the community. Even the small businesses were like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And it was so awesome to kind of step back and just see it all come together and unfold. And quickly, the word got out, and we jumped from 11 vendors to 32 vendors in that small parking lot. And then,
wow.
Yeah. So, of course, the third one, I was like, okay, it's time. We need to expand, because come the second and third market, we were receiving close to 200 applications. So it was so hard for me to, I had to deny a lot of people.
Sure.
And I was like, where can we move to next? So we moved to the La Plaza Park, which was right across the street from Bow and Arrow. And we were able to accommodate 60 vendors there. So I was like, okay, that gives us some room. And that was a huge, huge market for us too. And then we got invited by the city of Santa Rosa to do a market over there. And that was intimidating to me, because that was a very big location.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot of space.
A lot of space, exactly. But it was needed. The demand was there. And so, and I think that was in June, I hosted our first event in downtown Santa Rosa, where we were able to host 80 vendors there. And that was like our largest event by far. Like, it was so awesome, and it's grown tremendously. And, after learning and kind testing out the environment and response, I was like, how can we make this experience better for attendees? They're coming to come hang out, do some shopping, and mingle a little bit. And I was like, a beer garden would be so awesome to this, because we already had the food. And I was like, okay, I didn't know how to go about it, but I was like, let me just reach out. Let me go to HenHouse, because I would always go to HenHouse for beer and all of that. I was like, let me just see if they'd be interested in doing this. And thankfully enough, I got in contact with Bob.
Yeah.
And he was all for it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. It was really fun to figure that out. And initially, because we get in a lot of, event request emails and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, well, wait, I kind of don't know what this isn't a beer festival. I'm so confused. And then, because that's pretty much all I do all year is deal with people doing beer fests. And then we kind of went back and forth about how one goes about getting beer. And it is a tense regulatory environment that we operate in the alcohol space. And so you jumped through a million hoops. I did some Googling.
Yeah.
We learned some extra stuff. And then initially I was saying this to Sayre. I was like, dude, we've done a bunch of emails. I don't know, what we're really doing here.
Yeah.
And Sayre was like, no, this is going to be a really good opportunity. This is really cool. And I'm like, okay. And then you and I went back and forth a bunch more times. And Sayre was like, oh, really? Maybe. And I'm like, no. This is going to be really cool. Mercedes is on it. This is going to be a great opportunity. And it has been. It's been so much fun. It's been great to work with the Latino Alliance.
Yes.
Just a great bunch of folks. Also, I'm going to say your dad in particular has been super cool.
I know.
Yeah. Big supporter.
So awesome. I know.
Big HenHouse fan.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. That first event too, we didn't know how much to even bring as far as, to the event. And you guys, we sold out the first 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was insane.
We
didn't know what to expect.
No, it was rad. Huge hit. We were figuring out cups on the fly, I think I remember. And then I had actually grabbed a tent from the tasting room, because both of our tents were being used for stuff. And it was perfect because it was much smaller. So I fit in, physically
Perfectly.
fit in a lot better. And that was just a great happy accident. I mean, initially I would have shown up with this gigantic thing that's as big as the room that we're in, and it wouldn't have been as good.
Yeah.
But I got forced to grab the little guy, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
Awesome. So backtracking a little bit, what's the Latino Alliance?
Yeah, so which each SoCo Market that we have, we team up with a local nonprofit, and the Latino Alliance has been such a huge part of my success and business journey since I started my first business, Bow and Arrow. So Frankie, who is the founder and owner of Latino Alliance, I connected with him, and we were able to donate all of the proceeds from the beer over to them. And the Latino Alliance, they're from Roanoke Park here, but they really are about highlighting Latino and Latina businesses in Sonoma County, and creating opportunity for them and getting them plugged in where they can. They're amazing. Yeah, the things that they've done in their community are so awesome. And Frankie has his own restaurant too, Sol Azteca in Roanoke Park.
Cool.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I've been eating Sol Azteca for 4 decades, probably 3 decades.
Yeah. So that's his and his family's business. They're just amazing. And I don't know if you've seen, they've also moved into, is it Gravenstein? The brewery right there in Katati.
Grav South.
Grav South?
Exactly.
Grav South has Sol Azteca food?
Yeah, they partnered with them.
Man.
Now that's his latest adventure. Yeah, it's amazing. So beer and good Mexican food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all goes together really great. And it's so fun to see, you're a younger person. You got this business going. Then you're like, I'm so bored only running one business. How can I stretch myself a little bit more? Then you create this other successful, really thriving thing. You reach out to a local brewery, and we're like, we're totally going to be there, but we can't just show up and start squirting beer at people. And then so then this really great situation we found ourselves in is that just says, hey, well, let's bring in a nonprofit. Let's start raising some money for charity. Let's deepen what we're doing for the community, on a really deep level, while making the fest more fun by having some beer around, on a very surface level. It's just when you get local businesses together doing their thing, it's just the raddest. It's
so amazing. And I was on top of that, we're able to, support this nonprofit. I'm like, that's a win-win. That's so awesome. And that's truly what the SoCo Market is about too, is like highlighting these small businesses and coming together as a community all in one for one special day, you know, and everyone just has a blast. I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that because as you like kind of recap the story, you had a brick and mortar. You were paying rent in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And went and sort of sought out all of these Instagram-based businesses where like I've overheard a fair amount of resentment from people who were paying rent and trying to find ways to keep brick and mortars open as commerce moved online.
Yeah.
And if not resentment, at least fear of like, you know, why would anybody come through my door if, you know, they do all their shopping via Instagram.
Right.
Why wasn't that your way of thinking? What was it that you saw about e-commerce as an opportunity to build something bigger?
Yeah. With Bow and Arrow Clothing, we did rely heavily on foot traffic. When I started Bow and Arrow, I was 18. I started online, super small, had all the inventory in a small closet at my house. And so when I opened up my first brick and mortar, I was fully invested in that. So I kind of didn't pay attention to e-commerce. But during the pandemic, that forced me to really reconsider selling online. So I did a full, just revisited my business plan, and I was like, okay, how can we make this work, you know? So I invested in digital marketing, had to understand my customer a little bit more, and we revamped our website. I had to get all my inventory on there because we were closed. Our shop was closed. And a lot of people, you know, a lot of business owners had to make that decision, like, am I gonna be online, you know, because for anyone who was solely relying on foot traffic, you had to pivot if you wanted to make it during that time, which was really hard. And I know a lot of business owners, you know, didn't have connections they needed to make that happen. And, you know, we saw, you know, a lot of businesses close too. But I think being an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to pivot in those situations and think quick and like, hey, what can I do to make it? I've been through flood, fire, pandemic now all through the years, which is so crazy. Like all of us have. Isn't that insane?
Yeah,
it's like the Bible.
Yeah,
it is.
right?
It is. So, I mean, that's part of the entrepreneurship program. That's something that doesn't get taught in college or anything.
Well, so I'm interested then. So given all of that, you make this pivot. You're like, oh, e-commerce is going to keep me afloat.
Yeah.
There's also an entrepreneurial way of thinking, a bit of a diabolical one, which is like, oh shit, like I'm going to survive this thing and it's going to take out a lot of my competitors. That is sort of antithetical to being like, let me find 80 other Instagram largely based businesses that have been interacting with their clientele for the most part entirely virtually and give them a place to interface with potential customers face to face. Like literally build this thing that creates a target rich environment for people who are in some ways your competitors. Why isn't that the way you think of it?
I think because I've always focused on myself. I think when it came to, like, I view competition, it inspires me. For those that were already successful online, I looked at them, I'm like, hey, they did it, I can do it too. And even if, they've been doing it for the past several years and I haven't, I still have the same opportunity to start now. So I didn't let that hinder me or discourage me from doing that forward. You know what I mean? Because e-commerce is super competitive, especially right now. But I think I took that opportunity and I gave it all that I have. And because of that, our online grew tremendously, and I had to get a warehouse just for online alone during the pandemic. So it was in a way a blessing in disguise because I wouldn't have fully invested in e-commerce if I wasn't put in that position. So, we were able to really double, almost triple our revenue during that time because of online. So it was really insane kind of seeing that. But I was just really grateful that we are where we are today, you know, and that I was, courageous to make that decision. I'm just like, I'm not going to go down like this, you know?
Right.
So it was challenging, though.
I'm sure.
Yeah. 100%. I remember, too, when it first happened, kind of stepping back, because when I was just on Instagram, trying to sell on Instagram, too, I was literally hanging every, last shirt I have. I'm like, hey, guys, this is the last medium we have. Who wants it? Trying to sell what we had. And there was a point where I had nothing on my racks because our vendors, they all shut down in Los Angeles. So I couldn't order any new inventory. And I was like, I got rent, I got bills to pay. So I was trying to sell what we had left. But my shop, it looked like I was just getting ready to open again because there was nothing in there.
Wow.
It was surreal. It was a surreal experience.
Yeah.
And at what point in that do you encounter this thing in Melrose that you wanted to replicate?
Yeah, so when everything started to open back up again, I go to LA for buying trips. So I went down there and I was like, I've heard of Melrose Trading Post before. It's a community market they have on Sundays. So I went and checked it out. And I was like, this is so cool. I love it. And I just kind of saw an opportunity for to bring something like that to Sonoma County. And like I said, too, you saw so many people start these small businesses. And when I first started, I was only on Instagram, and I was looking for pop-ups to get plugged into. Like I was having pop-ups at SSU. I just had like a little table with a couple of items on them. And I always wished that there was something like that for me, like to get plugged into, because it was so hard back then. This is 2016. Looking for places to get plugged in to connect with customers in person if you were just online or on Instagram. So I was like, I want to create this kind of environment for those people because that's something I wish that I did have. And it's so crazy. The people who joined the market from the beginning to where they are now, some of them have opened up their own shops. A lot of them have, quit their 9-to-5s and fully pursued their small business, getting plugged into every pop-up that they can. That's been like the most rewarding thing to see out of all of this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's really inspiring, and it's a bit familiar. Like thinking about craft beer, when guys Bob and I's age got into it, versus where it is now. That's very cool. And I do think, I don't know whether you're intentionally dodging taking credit for how altruistic creating something like SoCo Market is, but I will give you that credit. I think that's a really cool thing, and it does. I think I've brought up this Issa Rae quote on the podcast before, but she was talking about like getting going in the entertainment industry, and she was just like, don't worry about networking up. Like network with people who have the same problems and are trying to solve the same things as you. Right. And like that's been true for us as a brewery. It sounds like it's been very true for you. Like who's negotiating the same shit that I am right now, and like find them and like work together, and then it kind of like rises from there, as opposed to like the energy of like, let me try to grab hold of everything that I can. Like everybody runs out of shit real fast to grab. Unless you're like making the pile bigger, you know what I mean? And so like getting 80 businesses together in the same place, might attract a couple thousand people. Which no single one of you is ever going to do that at your storefront on that day.
And another thing too, I mean, kind of talking about like competitors and stuff like that, it also is an opportunity for me to show everyone, like, it doesn't matter if you're in the same industry, selling the same product, like, we can all come together as one. And that's, like, what it's all about. You know what I mean?
Reach. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a huge thing, too, for me to really, focus on and kind of show these small business owners, too. Like, we're all in this together. You know what I mean? So...
Dope.
Yeah. We say that in beer all the time, and people are always like, your industry's so weird that you guys don't hate each other. Like, like put me out front, I'll be like, hey, Lagunitas, you guys make great beer. And I'll go back to work. Like, that's our industry, and it's super rare. And it's really cool to see you linking up with like a ton of different independent producers doing the whole thing. That's awesome.
So I know it's called SoCo Market. Are all of your purveyors Sonoma County-based businesses? Or?
You know what? We got a lot of attention from East Bay. So you'll see businesses from Hayward, San Jose, Vallejo, San Francisco, Oakland, Concord. It's kind of crazy how the SoCo Market blew up.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been so awesome making those connections with, other people and having them come here and then, really, showing Sonoma County, like, the Bay Area. You know what I mean?
Somebody's doing some hustle shit that East Bay is going to jump on it, right? More on that later. Well, cool. So let's talk about what we're working on together. I feel even more confident than I did when I first reached out that you were the right person for this assignment. It seems very values aligned. When we did the first Freshtival, there's the SoMo, I almost said SoCo, has all these cool nooks and crannies that we need to kind of like program and figure out what we're going to offer in these spaces. The original Freshtival, we had an area with mature beer, which was where Bob and I were hanging out.
Yeah. It was a good time.
It was great. It was awesome. But I think HenHouse has grown to the point now where we can probably come up with a whole separate shindig around mature beer, where we are in our barrel aging facility right now. We're making a lot more mature beer ourselves, and allow the Freshtival to really be the Freshtival, which opened up this big space in the Redwood Grove, is I believe how they refer to it. And It's also probably a best practice when people have access to 80 breweries for 5 hours to give them something to do besides just inhale booze. The entire time.
Definitely.
So
And dance.
right now,
Right.
well, that's another thing.
Yes.
We, more on that as well. More on that in future. What to expect at the Freshtival segments. But you're taking the Redwood Grove. You're taking a significant portion of the indoor area there. And what are we putting together?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be a part of this and have a part of the SoCo Market there in the action. So you'll find an area where the SoCo Market is. It's our community market we'll have there. There is going to be 12 vendors, so you'll have everything from vintage, plants, jewelry, local makers, all in an area while you're enjoying a nice cold beer. In addition to that, we also have the Art of Freshness Gallery, which is going to be so amazing. It will be highlighting mainly local artists who have done artwork for beer can labels. They'll be there showing their artwork, selling some merchandise, and you'll be able to connect with them in person. And I think it's just such an awesome opportunity that, HenHouse is giving all these artists and creators to be a part of. And as an attendee, I feel like it's going to be so amazing. So you're, not only going to go for the beer, you'll be able to shop local makers in the area, check out some awesome artwork, and just vibe the entire time, the entire day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
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 I
So
think
exciting.
these festivals, like from within the industry, always become like networking things, like a bunch of collaboration brews.
Totally.
Come from,
Right.
having a few too many beers and hanging out after a festival. And so I do think there's an opportunity there with the vendors that you're going to bring in, the artists that we're going to bring in. One thing that Josh brought up was like, I imagine artists are going to want to do this because if their job is to design beer labels, there's going to be 80 potential clients right outside.
Exactly.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I'm like excited and nervous to see how it goes off because like it's annoying to say that it's a departure from the typical programming of beer festivals, which it's weird to critique beer festivals for being beer centric because of course they should be, right?
Right.
But I am just kind of like, I love beer as much as anyone I know, and like I don't do anything for 5 hours straight.
Right.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
And particularly like with how well curated I expect these things are going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of visual stimulation, a lot of audio stimulation.
Oh, yeah.
Should be a great time.
Also, like speaking of personal experience, when I'm going to a bottle shop that does beer on premise as well, I will purposefully sit down and have a couple of beers and then go to the bottle shop because I enjoy the way those first couple of beers will lube up my wallet. It opens a lot easier if I've had a little bit to drink, and I want that. I'm going to shop, and just a couple of beers just puts me in that shopping mood.
Yes, it definitely does.
There's something really cool, like European, about like wandering shopping with alcohol in your hand.
Right?
Yeah.
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 Gotta love that.
Brewery fresh beer in an open air market, continental.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, anything else that people coming to the Freshtival should know? And, well, that question. Plus, let's hear the rundown of where else folks can access the SoCo Market, Mercedes, Bow and Arrow clothing, all of that stuff. So they know where to find you and these awesome events.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of the vendors that we are bringing to the Freshtival have all participated at the SoCo Market, so you can continue to shop with them at our markets all year long. And we have all of our event dates posted on our website and on Instagram. So our website is thesocomarket.com, and then our Instagram page is the SoCo Market. But I'm super excited because, the vendors that are participating are ones who have kind of been with us since day one and are ones that a lot of shoppers and attendees always rave about. So we are bringing you some great vendors. And again, like I said, there will be different categories hitting everyone's interests. I feel like whether it's plants, jewelry, vintage clothing, if you want some Harley tees, that's all me. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, you can definitely follow us more for more information. And we have our consistent dates all through August. You can find us in Katati the third Sunday of every month, and then in Santa Rosa every other month. We are there the second Friday in at Old Courthouse Square in downtown Santa Rosa. But again, all our information is on our website. If you are interested in being a vendor there too, our applications are found online as well.
That's what's up. You got that down. And then Bow and Arrow clothing?
Yes, and then Bow and Arrow clothing. So for those of you who don't know, it's a women's clothing shop in downtown Katati. I've had it for over 6 years in July, which is crazy to think. So you can shop with us in-store and online, and that's bowandarrowclothing.com. And then on Instagram, it's at bowandarrowclothing.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I ask a couple of questions just about vintage drip,
Yeah.
if I may?
Definitely.
Because that was something that that really made me feel old and confused when I was at SoCo Market, which is great. Because if I'm feeling old and confused, then I also feel like this is where hip is happening.
It's happening.
So that's good. I was like, this is the bee's knees.
I know.
But understood the candles, bought some, loved them. My girlfriend loved them. Understood earrings I bought,
Yeah, jewelry.
bought some, girlfriend loved them. I got great coffee. I understood that.
yeah.
I loved that. Saw some older Harley Davidson wear and thought, yes, this is what younger female identifying people are stoked on currently.
Yeah.
Deal me
It's
in. It's just
huge.
red.
It's so huge.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know, but I opened a vintage clothing shop downtown Santa Rosa, Holy Vintage.
Yeah.
I opened it up in this past October. So that is home to over 50 vintage curators, and all of these curators, you can find them at our SoCo Market.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing right now. So people are, thrifting and finding, old Harley Davidson t-shirts,
Yeah.
AC/DC tees.
Yeah.
Back from,
Man, the
80s,
Tasmanian
90s, 70s.
Devils was
Yes.
represented.
Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah.
dark. That brings back some of my worst
Yeah.
fashion moments.
Oh.
Is he like
yes,
in a
he
b-boy
is.
stance?
You know
with a
he's in the
hat
b-boy
backwards?
stance. Absolutely.
Oh, you know it.
I didn't
It's
realize
so
my
crazy.
7th grade closet was
Like,
so
You
ill
should have
right
kept
now.
it. Yeah, you should have kept
like an
it.
embroidered patch of Tweety herself wearing
Yes.
FUBU. Like
Yeah.
that is like that's cool. And I also love how this is going to be going down in the same spot that we had the older beer before. So we had beer, we were serving all these great beers people were really excited about that commanded, in stores a pretty impressive price. And this was beer that was so old, it was so stale. It had come all the way around and become vintage and in fact more desirable.
Okay.
And now some stuff that if I saw someone wearing that in high school, I'd be like, loser.
Right?
You're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that's my 90s gear from when I was when I was a Hill Middle School Husky. And but no, it's come whipping back around and now it's super cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. So come if you're ever looking for some merch or vintage wear, come to Holy Vintage.
Yeah.
We've got it all. So yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I was. I guess I've seen like the race car driver tee.
Yeah,
Yep.
NASCAR,
Yeah,
old
yep,
school
yep,
stuff.
yep,
Yeah,
okay.
all of that, all the band tees.
The Intimidator was represented pretty well at that first SoCo Market. I
Yes.
saw.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Both
May he rest in peace.
On the rack and on people's shoulders. Yeah. I saw it.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
oh man, it's so funny. I associate that with such a dark fashion time, like the
Really?
R&B video dudes all with the racing jackets with the hella patches.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're not sponsored by Exxon.
No.
Like
Man, remember when videos would be like in black and white, but there'd be like one or two colors? It'd be like black and white, but with everything blue would actually be blue, and then maybe like everything red in the video would also be red, and everything else was just black and white. It was a vibe. You had to be there, I guess.
the fisheye close
Gotta
up.
have the fisheye.
I got very little to add to that.
I gotta take my arthritis medication and Metamucil and be in bed pretty soon.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks for stopping by the retirement home.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I guess so.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
about this.
So I'm really excited. Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things coming, and the countdown begins to the Freshtival. Everything's getting locked in. So I'm really looking forward to it.
HenHouse Unruffled was created by Anna Scott. We record at HenHouse Brewing Company's Palace of Barrels in Petaluma, California. Our producer is Brian Henderson, and our associate producers are Josh Staples and Fridge. The music you've been listening to was written and performed by our San Francisco account rep McLean from his album Speechless and Speechless 2, which you can find on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and anywhere one finds dope music. If you have a question or comment about this or any episode of HenHouse Unruffled, please let us know by calling 707-347-9425 to leave a message. You can also send an email to podcast@henhousebrewing.com. For more information, visit www.henhousebrewing.com or stop by one of our Bay Area tasting rooms. The voice you've been listening to is Imani Russell Black. Please listen and drink responsibly.